On the cold afternoon of November 24, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving, Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 took off from Portland International Airport, Oregon, bound for Seattle, Washington. The flight was supposed to last only 30 minutes, a routine, uneventful trip, with 36 passengers and 6 crew members on board. No one could have imagined that this would mark the beginning of one of the greatest criminal mysteries of all time. Among the passengers, one man drew little attention. He wore a dark suit, white shirt, slim black tie, and dark sunglasses. He looked like an ordinary businessman from the 1970s, perhaps heading to a meeting or going home before the holiday. On his boarding pass, his name was simple, Dan Cooper. But due to a communication error that would never be corrected, the press would forever call him D.B. Cooper. Shortly after takeoff, the man ordered a bourbon and soda and lit a cigarette, something allowed at the time. He appeared calm, almost relaxed, but at 3:00 p.m., he handed flight attendant Florence Schaffner a small folded note. She assumed it was his phone number, not uncommon for lonely passengers. She tucked the note into her pocket and smiled politely, ready to move on. But the man leaned slightly toward her and said in a firm voice, "Miss, I think you'd better read the note now. I have a bomb." Florence's heart raced. She opened the note and read a message written in black ink. "I have a bomb in my briefcase. I want you to sit next to me." Unsure what to do, she complied. When she sat down, he opened the briefcase just enough to reveal what looked like a collection of red wires, cylindrical sticks, and a battery. It was enough to convince her. Calmly, Cooper began giving instructions. He demanded $200,000 in $20 bills, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting in Seattle. He said that once the plane landed, he would let all passengers go safely, but the aircraft and part of the crew had to remain ready for takeoff. Meanwhile, the pilot, William Scott, was discreetly informed of the situation and relayed the demands to air traffic control. Police and the FBI were alerted immediately. For nearly 2 hours, Flight 305 circled above Seattle, waiting for the money and parachutes to be delivered. Cooper never showed any nervousness. He allowed passengers to be served, refused assistance, and even paid for his drink. His composure unsettled everyone. When the plane finally landed, night had fallen. The runway lights were dimmed, and police vehicles waited at a distance. An airline employee in civilian clothes approached the aircraft and handed over a canvas bag containing the money and parachutes. Cooper quickly checked the contents and, satisfied, released the 36 passengers. None of them realized they had just witnessed a historic crime. With only 4 crew members remaining, the pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer, and flight attendant Tina Mucklow, the plane took off again under Cooper's orders. He was never seen again. The FBI immediately launched one of the largest manhunts in U.S. history. More than 1,000 agents were mobilized. Helicopters, tracking dogs, and search teams combed the cold, mountainous forests between southern Washington and northern Oregon. No body was found, no parachute, no solid evidence. It was as if the man had vanished into thin air. Investigators began examining everything they had: the note, the briefcase, the bourbon glass, and the black tie left on the seat. Every ransom bill had been recorded, with its serial number logged. Authorities hoped that sooner or later, the money would surface in a transaction. But it never did. The story spread quickly. The mysterious hijacker who jumped from a plane with a fortune became a modern legend. Newspapers called him the gentleman thief of the skies because he hadn't hurt anyone, was polite, and kept his word to release the passengers. But to the FBI, he was nothing more than a dangerous criminal who had managed to achieve the impossible. Over time, dozens of suspects emerged. One of the first was an Army veteran named Richard McCoy, who in 1972 carried out an almost identical hijacking, demanding money, parachutes, and then jumping from a plane. He was captured and convicted but denied being Cooper until he died in a shootout with the FBI. Still, many believed he could have been the man from the year before. Other suspects included local criminals, former pilots, and even a man who allegedly confessed to the crime on his deathbed. One of them was Dwayne Weber, who, according to his wife, would mutter in his sleep that he was Dan Cooper. The FBI investigated, but no solid evidence was ever found. For years, the agency analyzed hundreds of leads. Fingerprints were collected from the seat and rear stairway of the plane, and samples from the tie were examined under electron microscopes. Decades later, they discovered titanium particles on the tie, a material used in the aerospace and military industries, which led to the theory that Cooper might have been an engineer or a specialized technician. The mystery seemed unsolvable, but in 1980, a discovery reignited the case. An 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was camping with his family on the banks of the Columbia River in Washington state when he found bundles of cash partially buried in the sand. The bills were deteriorated, but the serial numbers matched those from the D.B. Cooper ransom. The discovery raised more questions than answers. How had the money ended up there, over 30 kilometers from the plane's estimated route? Had Cooper survived and hidden part of the cash? Or had he died in the fall, and the river carried the bills downstream over time? The FBI combed the area meticulously but found nothing more. In the following decades, the case was reopened several times. New DNA techniques, soil analyses, and flight reconstructions were used. No decisive breakthrough ever emerged. In 2016, after 45 years of investigation, the FBI officially closed the case. D.B. Cooper, the man who defied both gravity and modern investigation, would remain an enigma. But the fascination never died. Documentaries, books, films, and online forums continued searching for answers. Some believe he died in the jump, that it was impossible to survive under those conditions: rain, strong winds, low temperature, and near-zero visibility. Others insist he lived, that he might have gone on to spend the rest of his life in silence, watching the world try to decode his secret. Some say Cooper planned everything perfectly. He knew the right altitude, asked for the correct type of parachute, and demanded $20 bills to reduce weight and make tracking harder. He also chose a short flight with little fuel over an isolated region. Nothing seemed random. He might have been military, perhaps an experienced paratrooper. If that's true, then he may well have done the impossible: vanished. The D.B. Cooper case became more than a crime. It became an American legend. It symbolizes mystery, daring, and the eternal question no one has ever answered: who was that man? Some retired investigators still believe new clues might one day emerge. With advances in DNA technology and the digitization of old records, it's possible that someday the tie left on the seat could reveal something definitive. But for now, what remains is only the story of a man who boarded an ordinary plane, carried out the perfect heist, and jumped into the unknown. What happened next remains in the shadows. Maybe he froze to death in that forest. Maybe he survived, fled far away, started a new life under another name, quietly smiling every time he saw a news report about the man who vanished into thin air. The mystery of D.B. Cooper is a reminder that even in the modern world there are still secrets time refuses to reveal. A faceless man, a leap into darkness, and an enigma that continues to defy the truth. Decades later, when the survivors of that flight tell the story, they still remember the calm look and steady tone of that passenger in the dark suit. He seemed to know exactly what he was doing, as if everything had already been planned. Perhaps he was a criminal genius, or maybe just a desperate man in search of freedom. No one knows what truly motivated D.B. Cooper: money, adventure, revenge, or simply the desire to disappear and become a myth. Whatever the answer, it fell with him that stormy night. And ever since, every thunderclap over the forests of the Pacific Northwest seems to whisper the same name, carried away by the wind: D.B. Cooper.